The concept of the Antichrist is one of the most debated topics in biblical prophecy. According to Scripture, the Antichrist will play a significant role in end-time events, particularly in relation to the Jerusalem temple. Various passages from the Old and New Testaments indicate that he will desecrate the temple and proclaim himself as divine. This study explores where the Antichrist might appear within the temple, his role in prophecy, and the implications of his actions. Before we start, we'd like to ask for your support. If you enjoy our video, please hit the like button. This will help us reach more people and create content for you. Now let's get started with today's video. Biblical background on the Antichrist. The term Antichrist is primarily found in the epistles of John, 1 John 2 verses 18 and 22, 4 verse 3, 2 John 1 verse 7, where it refers to anyone who denies Christ. However, in eschatological, end times, theology, the Antichrist is understood as a future world leader who opposes God and exalts himself. Several biblical passages provide insights into his activities. Daniel 9 verse 27. The Antichrist is depicted as the prince who is to come, who will confirm a covenant with many for 1 week, 7 years, but will break it in the middle. 2 Thessalonians 2 verses 3 to 4. Paul describes the man of sin who will sit in the temple of God, declaring himself to be God. Revelation 13 verses 5 to 8. The beast, often identified as the Antichrist, is given authority for 42 months, 3.5 years, and demands worship. Matthew 24 verse 15. Jesus refers to the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel, indicating that the Antichrist will desecrate the temple. These passages suggest that the Antichrist will have a physical presence in the temple, making it a central location for end-time prophecy. The rebuilding of the third temple. For the Antichrist to appear in the temple, a Jewish temple must exist in Jerusalem. Currently, the second temple, which was destroyed in 70 AD, has not been rebuilt. However, many Jewish groups are advocating for the construction of a third temple. Several developments indicate that preparations are underway, such as the Temple Institute's efforts to recreate temple artifacts and train priests. If the third temple is built, it will likely become a focal point of global religious attention. The Antichrist may use this to his advantage, entering the temple to assert his divine claims. Where in the temple will the Antichrist appear? The Jerusalem temple historically had 3 main areas. The outer court, accessible to all, including Gentiles. The holy place, reserved for Jewish priests. The Holy of Holies, the most sacred place, where the Ark of the Covenant once stood and only the high priest could enter once a year. Based on biblical descriptions, the Antichrist's appearance in the temple could occur in several locations. 1. The Holy of Holies. 2 Thessalonians 2 verse 4 states that the Antichrist will sit in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. This suggests he may enter the Holy of Holies, which traditionally housed God's presence. If the Ark of the Covenant or another significant artifact is restored, the Antichrist's presence there would be a direct act of blasphemy. 2. The Holy Place. Daniel 11 verse 31 and Matthew 24 verse 15 mention the abomination of desolation, which could refer to an idol or an act of desecration. If temple sacrifices are reinstituted, the Antichrist may enter the holy place and disrupt the sacrificial system. 3. The outer court or Temple Mount. If the Antichrist seeks global recognition, he may declare himself from a more public area. The outer court or Temple Mount could provide visibility for a declaration that he is divine. This would parallel historical events, such as when Antiochus IV Epiphanes, a prototype of the Antichrist, desecrated the temple by setting up a pagan altar. The abomination of desolation. The phrase abomination of desolation originates in Daniel 9 verse 27, 11 verse 31, 12:11, and is referenced by Jesus in Matthew 24 verse 15. This event likely refers to the Antichrist placing an idol or proclaiming himself as God within the temple. Some scholars believe this could involve a physical idol or image being set up in the temple. Revelation 13 verses 14 to 15 mentions the false prophet making an image of the beast, the cessation of sacrifices, and the introduction of a new form of worship. A supernatural event where the Antichrist demonstrates false signs and wonders. 2 Thessalonians 2 verse 9. How will the Antichrist gain access to the temple? For the Antichrist to enter the temple, he must first gain political and religious influence. Daniel 9 verse 27 suggests he will establish a covenant with Israel, possibly allowing for the rebuilding of the temple and the resumption of sacrifices. Once he has secured power, he will break this covenant at the 3.5-year mark of the 7-year tribulation period. This act of betrayal will shock many, leading to the Great Tribulation described in Matthew 24 verse 21. Revelation 13 describes the Antichrist's reign as one of oppression and forced worship, with economic control, the mark of the beast. The response to the Antichrist's appearance. According to prophecy, the Antichrist's desecration of the temple will mark a turning point. Persecution of believers. Those who refuse to worship him will be targeted. Revelation 13 verses 7 to 10. The flight of the faithful. Jesus warned in Matthew 24 verse 16 that when the abomination of desolation appears, those in Judea should flee to the mountains. Divine judgment. The Antichrist's reign will ultimately be short-lived. Revelation 19 describes how Jesus will return and defeat him, casting him into the lake of fire. Conclusion. The Antichrist's appearance in the Jerusalem temple is a key moment in biblical prophecy. Scripture suggests that he will enter the temple, possibly the Holy of Holies, and proclaim himself as God. This act of desecration will signal the start of the Great Tribulation and will be met with divine judgment. The necessity of a third temple for these events raises significant questions about current developments in Israel. Many believe preparations for the temple's reconstruction are already underway. If so, the world may be moving closer to the fulfillment of these prophecies. For those who study biblical eschatology, the rise of the Antichrist serves as both a warning and a reminder of Christ's ultimate victory. As Jesus said in Luke 21 verse 28, "When these things begin to happen, stand up and lift up your heads, because your redemption is drawing near." Please subscribe my YouTube channel. I hope you like this video. Thank you.